My name is Julian Thielman. I use he, him pronouns, and I am one of the assistant deans of admission here at Reed College. And we will be hosting linguistics faculty office hours today. As questions come up for our students in the audience, please just go ahead and pop those in the chat or in the Q&A feature, and I will go ahead and read those out during the Q&A portion of this. Before that, one of our wonderful linguistics professors is going to give sort of an overview of the department, what makes linguistics at Reed distinctive, and then we'll have a chance for students to ask the questions that they have. We do ask that folks just go ahead and keep their cameras off and their microphones muted, and just pop the questions in the chat. We are recording this session, so if any answer piques your interest and stuff comes up, you'll have a chance to go back to the recording later. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Samir to give us an overview of linguistics at Reed.
Hi, thank you, Julian. And it's so wonderful to see you all today. I'm here on Zoom. So I'm Samir. I'm one of the three linguists here at Reed College. We have a small but mighty department here with our three faculty and roughly, I'd say like 40-ish majors. We have a fairly popular department here, despite our very small size, and we do as much as we can to try to make sure that we cover a huge, broad swath of the world of linguistics here with just our small number of faculty. Reed is special to even have a linguistics department, actually. So for small liberal arts colleges, we're one of only, I believe, 5 schools that has linguistics as a program. And because of that, we recognize like kind of our special status. And so we have amongst our 3 faculty, I cover everything that has to do with sound as much as possible. So I cover phonetics, phonology, things within that realm. I teach classes in phonetics and phonology as well as in intonation. So kind of like what your pitch and voice quality do while you speak in different languages. I also teach a course called Languages of South Asia to kind of cover a region of the world and like the various languages within it. And then I also help teach the intro course to linguistics and a couple methods courses. So I teach field methods where we learn how to work within the field, working with the speaker of a language we don't know. And also methods of design and analysis, how to create a question out of the academic literature in linguistics and then build a research project through like even the stats at the end. So that's me. And then we also have Kara, who I guess I can actually share to show a little bit of some visuals so you have like face to a name. To some requests to share. Great. All right, so over here we have Kara, who is just a bit senior to me. She's been around for, I guess now, 14 years at Reed, and she specializes in sociolinguistics. Her areas are specifically looking at dialect variation. So she started with a kind of background in New York City English, but now covers more the Pacific Northwest English. So looking at how Oregon and Washington State, as well as British Columbia, might kind of form a region linguistically speaking of English. She's also worked on African American varieties of English, as well as other just kind of general varieties of American English. And she teaches classes also on how gender, sex, sexuality influences your speech, as well as aspects like linguistic discrimination. She has an intro course that's open to people with no prereqs that looks specifically at linguistic discrimination within the US. We also have Matt Pearson, who is our most senior member and has literally was like also an alum of our department before it was even a department. And so he actually helped build our program, and he is a syntactician. So he works on kind of language sentence structure, grammar, as well as in the morphology and semantics kind of realms and their interfaces with syntax. He's also an expert in Austronesian languages. Austronesian is a language family that spans a gigantic part of the world, mostly within Southeast Asia, but across the entire Pacific, all the way to Easter Island, and also across the entire Indian Ocean, all the way to Madagascar off the coast of Africa. So it's a huge language family, and he focuses on one of the kind of more divergent languages within that group, which is Malagasy, spoken on Madagascar. And he's got a really cool research going on right now about prepositions in that language. It might be the only language in the world that cares about the tense of the preposition. So everybody knows that like verbs can carry tense, like past, present, or future, but this is probably the only language where prepositions also have to be marked differently for past, present, and future. So our department has, across our 3 faculty members, we teach a lot of courses, only maybe 3 or 4 of which are meant to be prerequisites for other courses. So we have a relatively flat kind of class structure. The idea is we really want people to get that broad experience and not have to track within certain areas. So you can take our intro courses on Intro to Linguistic Analysis, 211, Intro to Sociolinguistic Patterns, 212. Those are open to people with no prereqs, including freshmen. They tend to fill up, so usually we see more sophomores take those courses. But we also have a class in phonetics and a class in syntax that are also without prereqs, and so we often see a lot of freshmen in those classes. And we, every other year, we also see freshmen in linguistic analysis, or linguistic discrimination, as I mentioned, Kara teaches. After those courses, essentially, you can take any courses within linguistics. There's very little other like prereq structure within our major or within our department at all. If you want to minor in our field, you just have to take 5 courses within linguistics. And if you want to major, you just have to take 2 more courses than that. Plus, because we recognize that linguistics is kind of inherently interdisciplinary, we ask that linguistics majors also take courses within an allied field that is just another department that is not linguistics. It's up to you to decide what that field would be. But if it has some overlap with linguistics, so all kinds of languages would count. Psychology could count, anthropology, theater, music, all of these have some overlap with linguistics. Basically anything other than, I can imagine, like, might be hard to argue for chemistry, but even say physics, when you think about the overlap with acoustics. So almost everything can count as an allied field. And if you take 4 courses in that, plus demonstrate proficiency in 2 non-native languages, so languages that you've learned in the classroom, you have completed our major. So the languages, a lot of people do that through high school language coursework, coursework that they've taken over the summer, or through transfer credits, through study abroad, all kinds of ways that people can do that. You don't have to do that with coursework at Reed, but of course we do have a number of languages that we teach here at Reed that people often take. And that kind of covers what our major looks like. Our majors themselves have gone into all kinds of different tracks within that way. So some of them tend to take more syntax semantics type courses, others take more sociolinguistic type courses, others take more sound-based courses like phonetics and phonology. But most of our students really try to take a little bit of everything and get a really broad kind of overview of the field. I think that's what I wanted to say about kind of the structure of our courses. But I did want to show a little bit about what we have here at Reed. So we're also very lucky to have this space. Oh, I'm trying to show my screen here. Show my screen here. So we have what we call the LOL, the Lab of Linguistics, which is next door to my office. And it's a great little space where it's ostensibly for linguistics research, including with our soundproof sound booth on the right side. You can kind of see there. Of course, lots of little IPA charts and like images of the vocal tract, linguistic maps, of course. But often students are just hanging out in there and just doing their homework or getting some kind of informal tutoring help. We have a lot of seniors who just hang out there, and then when freshmen or sophomores come in to kind of like learn about linguistics, there's a lot of one-on-one kind of mentoring that happens here, just on an informal kind of way. We have three people who are actually in charge of running the lab. There are three students. Josue and Grace are seniors. Ren is a junior. And they have been also organizing events and things, having like little, what's it called, like word of the year challenges, or they're making a conlang right now, a constructed language, to see who can kind of pick up on some languages through very complex grammar there that they're working on the whiteboard. Not visible here in this picture, but it's there. We've got a lot of equipment here, so students who are working on class projects, thesis projects, often end up in the LOL to do their recordings, check out equipment. And there's research going on in that space as well, even just through kind of, what's it called? Lab groups meeting there to talk about their projects. Right now, I'm doing a project on different sign languages. This is a kind of new area for me, but I'm looking at sign languages of South Asia. It's a kind of under-researched area with respect to sign languages. So we're looking at Indian Sign Language, Pakistani Sign Language, what's called Bengali Sign Language, as well as West Bengali Sign Language, which are thought to be maybe all varieties of the same language, or maybe 4 different languages, we're not really sure. And we're compiling little GIFs, basically, of people signing a lot of basic words in their languages, looking through all kinds of YouTube videos and whatnot. And so I have 3 students, one from linguistics, one from math, and another from comp lit, who are all bringing like different areas of expertise to this project. I think that's a lot of the background I wanted to say. I wanted to kind of like get an idea of like what questions y'all have, and then I'm happy to talk more about the department overall. I see that there are some questions about the language proficiency. Good question. So there are lots of different ways that you can assess your language proficiency. If you've taken courses in high school, we can take that credit. Usually what we look for is an AP test score for that. And if you don't have an AP test score, usually what we'll say is you would need to take a proficiency exam here at Reed. So if it's, say, in Spanish, Mandarin, French, German, or Russian, one of the languages we teach here, then we would ask you to take a proficiency exam. And then we'll just use that to categorize your proficiency there. If there isn't a proficiency exam here, we can do one of a few things. Like we've had a few students want to test their Swedish proficiency. And so we've just kind of connected with Portland State University that has a Swedish language program and just asked them to do a test for us. We've also had people just show us that they've been taking courses at different community colleges in the area. Since our number of languages that we teach here at Reed is relatively small, we have a lot of students who end up taking, say, Japanese or American Sign Language or whatever else in other schools in the area. And I want to note that if you are an international student, then maybe the expectations are different. So maybe if you grew up speaking a different language and English is something you learned only within school, then English counts as one of your non-native proficiency languages. So it's not just about English versus non-English, it's about whatever was not a native language you learned in childhood. Let's see. So the conlang, yeah, I personally do not know yet. This is kind of a secret kept amongst the students. So I'm not in on this one, but I do see every now and then that the verbs have a lot of prefixes. The verbs show some kind of agreement system with both the subject and the object. But yeah, it's very Niger-Congo-like with a lot of prefixation going on, but I have yet to find out more information about this conlang.
So
Oh,
I was a little curious really quick. You talked a little bit about research through the Lab of Linguistics, and you touched briefly on the thesis. Are there any theses that you've advised or are currently advising? What kind of topics do seniors typically pursue when they are writing that senior thesis?
totally. Yeah, thank you for reminding me. So we usually have 9 to 12 seniors writing a thesis at any one time and in a year. Right now, yeah, we have, I believe, 9 who are graduating this semester and another 2 who just started their thesis this semester. So a pretty decent size class right now. And they have like a linguistics thesis can look like so many different things. Just within like the students that I'm advising, who are generally working on something to do with sound, even within that range, it's quite large. So I have one student who is looking at, so I don't know if you know this TV show. I didn't know this TV show before. It's called Love Island. It's a reality TV show, and it's about finding love on, where they stick you on an island. I believe it's in Fiji in the season that my student is looking at. And what this student is looking at right now is how people use creaky voice. That's the voice quality that sounds like this. If you've heard this on TV before, that's like a way that some people talk in English. How they use that, when they use that, and how that reflects not just who you are, but actually who your audience is. So she's taking what's called an audience design approach, meaning that what you're looking at is how does the maybe demographics of the person you're speaking to or your motivations with the person you're speaking to affect how you yourself speak? One of the ways in which this is kind of well understood is when you're talking to your friends, you might sound different than how you're talking to your parents or how you're talking to your professor. You're the same in all those instances, but your audience is different. And so you might shift a little bit, like the words you use or how you pronounce things, how you even hold your body, all that kind of stuff might change in a design for your audience. So what we haven't really seen is how creaky voice might be used along these lines. And so what Naomi is looking at is, let's say a woman on the show who's talking to another woman versus who's talking to a man that she might be interested in dating, because it is Love Island, versus a man she's not interested in dating. So how do these 3 groups, just broadly construed, change how that same woman will use creaky voice? And what she's found so far is that women use creaky voice much less with other women and quite a lot with men, especially men that they are not interested in, which is really interesting. So she's kind of working out a story for that right now. And her current story is that creaky voice conveys a little bit of distance and, yeah, detachment. And so the reason why they would use it more for men that they're trying to not get romantically involved with is it is a way to convey, I'm not actually romantically interested. I'm not vulnerable with you. I'm not kind of opening up to you. But to women, to other women, they can be more intimate and vulnerable with one another without that confusion. It's a very heteronormative show. But yeah, so this creaky voice could be kind of conveying something about that. I have another student, Josue, who's working on speakers of Nahuatl/Spanish, they're bilinguals, in El Salvador. Nahuatl is mostly a language that is associated with the Aztec Empire and like is spoken by people in Mexico, like lots and lots of people in Mexico, but a very small community in El Salvador from people who had migrated there hundreds of years ago. What Josue is interested in is how Nahuatl fluency is affecting people's Spanish within this area, as well as their perception of how other languages sound. So Nahuatl has the sound ch and the sound sh, like a ch type sound and an sh type sound, but Spanish only has the ch type sound, no sh type sound. So those people who are bilingual are better able to perceive that difference and also reproduce it, even in fake languages and in languages and English words that are being borrowed into Spanish. So he actually went to El Salvador and like got funding to be able to go up into the mountains and record people there, and did all this over winter break and has been analyzing the data since. And another student of mine, Aiden, who's a double major in computer science and linguistics, is looking at what are called mondegreens. These are when you misinterpret song lyrics. So when you hear a song lyric and you think you know what it says, and then you say it out loud, and somebody else is like, "That's definitely not what they're saying." Um, that kind of not hallucination, but misinterpretation has been looked at a lot by linguists, but now computer scientists are actually interested in it and seeing if we can model when we will misinterpret things and how we'll misinterpret it and like exactly what the best model would be. So Aiden is approaching this with a linguist's and computer scientists kind of perspective and has merged together a much stronger model of how we misinterpret song lyrics and did this by, literally having people listen to tons of song lyrics and write out what they think they heard. And Aiden has been painstakingly like writing all kinds of programs to analyze these and calculate like in a quantified way how off people are from the original lyric and what that means kind of semantically, how off they are that way, as well as phonologically, how much the sound is different from what they actually heard. It's been all fascinating, like looking at all these students. If you're interested in other kinds of projects that people are working on or have been working on, I want to at least show you where you can look on our website. We have a recent thesis titles section of our department website. So it's under senior thesis titles. And you can see all the different titles there. If you come to the read library, you can actually read all of these as well. But you can see people have looked at Old English. They've looked at the semantics of particles within Kham, a Tibetan language, as well as in Mayan languages. Lots of look at embodied energy, so how people move their bodies as well as change their language when they're pretending to be one character versus another, all kinds of stuff. I see there's another question too.
Yeah, so there's a question in the chat about how the linguistics major would intersect specifically with computer science. I know you just mentioned your student Aiden and the work that he's doing with mondegreens, which sounds absolutely fascinating. By the way. And I want to hear in a bit how the students are actually arriving at these topics because that is also mind-boggling to me. But do you know anything about how linguistics might intersect with computer science here at Reed, as well as any other different subfields?
Yeah, what's fascinating is like currently we don't have any courses within, I don't think, computer science or linguistics that explicitly overlaps with the other one. So Aiden is kind of unique and literally being a double major and just writing a thesis right now in computer science and another one linguistics, and each one is sort of informed by the other. But we've often had students who have had computer science interests and use computer science as their allied field and linguistics as their major, and then they'll go on to work in areas that kind of overlap the two. So we've sent a number of students to a program at the University of Washington that is a 2-year graduate program that is designed for linguists to pick up like more computer science skills so that they can become more computational linguists with the idea of going kind of into industry jobs within that area. We've had a lot of students do that, and they're working at Google, at Nuance, at Microsoft, all kinds of places, Grammarly. They're all hiring some version of what they're calling linguists or other such terms, language engineers, things like that. So while our department itself, with our current 3 faculty, we can't teach computational linguistics itself, we do have a lot of people who will do like the computational allied field and then go on to take more courses elsewhere in computational linguistics.
How do you advise students like that? So with students who are interested in something like, a computer science and a linguistics, where there isn't, maybe a formal partnership in between those two disciplines, how do you advise students?
Yeah, that's been kind of fun. I mean, luckily Aiden, since like Aiden already has another advisor within computer science for their other thesis, they can, I'm sure, talk to them about that. Because I'm not going to be helpful about like, oh, I think you can, improve your model this way. I give more conceptual ideas there. Like your model probably should incorporate the idea of phonological features, and here's a feature set you might want to incorporate. But the technical aspect of that has to be up to Aiden in that sense. Um, yeah, my area of like coding is up to what linguists tend to do or what phoneticians tend to do, which is working in our program called PROT, which is a kind of cute little program that was devised by a computer scientist and a phonetician in the Netherlands. All phoneticians use it, and it has its own, very bespoke kind of coding system. And so we're used to that, and we also use R for our statistical modeling. But in terms of like hardcore computational modeling, learning algorithms, things like that, people usually take courses in computer science as part of their allied field for that.
So you mentioned this program at University of Washington that a lot of students go on to do, as well as some, sort of common career trajectories that students choose to pursue. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What linguistics majors go on to do after they graduate from Reed?
Totally. Yeah. Every year we'll have an alumni career panel over Zoom. So we'll, invite people who have done four very different things within linguistics from our field. So we'll usually invite, of course, one person who went on to grad school within linguistics, like kind of like the narrowest view of what you can do with linguistics. But we'll usually have like one student a year who will probably do that. Then we'll also invite somebody who's gone on to grad school in a different area. So maybe nursing school, very common, law school, other fields like anthropology, economics, data science, library science. We've had students go on to all those different areas for more higher education, as well as, of course, computational linguistics. We'll invite people who've gone on to kind of tech or research areas. So we'll often get people from, as I mentioned, Grammarly, Microsoft, Google, Nuance, these different companies. And then people have done just like completely different things. So we've had a student go on to work for Basic Rights Oregon for kind of transgender rights here in the state. People have gone into web design, completely different. Like she wrote a thesis on expletives in English and ended up going to Cambridge to study linguistics there, and then ended up doing web design and kind of like user interface stuff. We've had a student become a musician and DJ in the Bay Area, and she's put out CDs and everything recently. We had a student work as a translator for movies. We've had a student who was actually the consultant for the movie Arrival back in the day. If you remember that movie, I guess it's not that long ago, but it's about a linguist. And so one of our students became like the consultant to like show what it's like to be a linguist for that film. I've had students work for Portland Public Schools, for lots of nonprofits, including one that's called Communitas America, Teach for America, grant management, a student who's a writer, so all sorts of things. And so these are all students that we've had invited back, in addition to all kinds of things that I'm sure that people are doing that we're not even aware of. Oh, I know that one student who does like sort of culturally informed tours within Cambodia, in the Cambodian countryside. So yeah, like all kinds of stuff. So I'm seeing a question about body language. Yeah. So we don't have like a specific course that's dedicated to body language, but some of our research topics courses in sociolinguistics, a lot of new research in sociolinguistics has been talking about embodiment and the idea that language is just one of many ways in which we express ourselves through our body, and that we can't really separate the language from the physical aspect too. And so people have been looking at, like how you position your face, how you position your body, how you gesture with your hands could be not separate from language, but actually a component of that as well. It's relatively new and being brought in, but especially when we're talking about how people express their identity through language, that has to be kind of connected with also how you present yourself through your clothing and through your body as well. So I would say like the language and gender course, as well as the topics in research topics in sociolinguistics would cover things like that. And I see a question also about nursing school. Yeah, actually, I'm not sure why we've had the number of students go into nursing. I don't think that's something inherent to like linguistics and nursing being connected that way. It's more that linguistics gets you to think about kind of two areas that might be very helpful for nursing. On one side, we are very people facing. Like we are literally thinking about how people communicate with one another, how what you say is also just as important as like how you say it and how you convey your emotion and everything through intonation and whatnot. So that is very important in nursing and how information could be lost in bad bedside manner or just kind of like misunderstanding things across gender or across race, across those kinds of community differences. And on the other side, we work a lot with very complex data and how to organize and find patterns within it. So a lot of what we do in class is like just looking at very complicated linguistic things, like just how people speak, how they pronounce things. It's not organized, and we have to figure out that there's a pattern behind it and express that pattern to different kinds of audiences, like in a very highly technical way, as well as thinking about like, okay, if you were to change the theory and talk about it this way, how would you explain the same thing? So I feel like those two things actually end up being really helpful in areas like nursing. So even though it's not like literally working to like help somebody as a nurse, but these two skills end up working in a lot of different fields and are kind of core to linguistics.
So let's talk a little bit about community within the department. It's my understanding that linguistics is one of our smaller departments that we have here at Reed. How do you think that shows up within the department's community?
Yeah, so we work hard to make sure that students don't feel like they're alone. I mean, given that it's a small department, small but mighty department, it's like you have to get along. Like we all share this nerdy love for linguistic things, and that brings us together inherently, but that also means we often don't immediately reach out and share our nerdy interests with others. But we've been doing that with one another. We have our movie nights, we have parties at the faculty members' houses for like bringing us back to the semester, that sort of thing. But we also have little challenges that are given. We have the Linquiry every month. We have like a linguistic kind of challenge or puzzle that is sent around the department, and then whoever gets it can get a little linguistic themed gift. But we also have kind of informal groups. We've got, I have to pronounce it this way, coffee groups. We don't pronounce it coffee groups, it's coffee groups because we use the open O in our spelling of it, where we have kind of our more senior students meet with our more junior students and just like chat about the department over coffee, and charge to the department. We have a special like pizza day for our junior students who are working on their qualifying exams. The seniors will take them out to pizza one day to kind of just like get their minds off of their exam work. The seniors present their work to the rest of the department in what we call the thesis showcase. And so that's going to happen actually next month. And we'll share kind of the fruits of people's labor. And we practice the whole year kind of like being able to talk to students of different backgrounds, people who have come with, as freshmen and might not have all the technical terminology. How can they still understand what's going on in thesis and get inspired? We make sure to make those connections, as well as our alumni panel. So those are some of the kinds of like things that we're doing. We're trying to organize right now an IPA calligraphy workshop. So for those of you who've studied IPA, their National Phonetic Alphabet, it's got a lot of funny symbols in it. It uses the Latin alphabet, but with a lot of extensions. And we're trying to figure out how to work on our calligraphy here. Reed is kind of proud of its calligraphy background. We've always had this calligraphy, it's not a course, it's called scriptorium. It's something that people can take every week and just drop in. The materials are made available, and people practice their calligraphy all the time. And what we're trying to do is see if we can connect it more to the linguistics department this way. So those are some like kind of things that we do as a whole department. Of course, as the students, they have their softball team that they use, that they and that comes up during Ren Fair. They have their conline line that they're working on right now, and all kinds of things that happen in the lab next door that I'm not invited to. It's all student-run things. But yeah, there's a lot of connection there across their different interests within linguistics.
So real quick, before we get to that question about other research being done, I have to ask, what's the softball team called?
Oh, I don't know if they've chosen a team name yet, actually. So that should be coming up soon. My favorite team name that happened recently was called, it's just K exclamation mark, which is the IPA symbol for, and so that was a really good one. They also had Rapid and Anonymous as one in the past. That's using a reference to one of our research methods. The Rapid and Anonymous research method is where you just walk up to somebody and just interact with them. And you just hear how they maybe pronounce something, the word that they use, and you kind of write it down yourself. And you never actually even tell them that they're part of a research project necessarily, because it's kind of like public information. It's just how people talk in public. And so it was used kind of famously in the what's called the department store study, and Labov just wanted to find out how people pronounce fourth floor. Do they say fourth floor and kind of drop their R's, or do they say fourth floor with kind of hard R? And so he just asked people who worked at a department store, where's the women's section? And they'll say, oh, it's in the fourth floor, or it's on the fourth floor. And he kind of took down those notes. But it's a really good name.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
thanks for linking to the scriptorium. It's a fantastic thing that we have here.
Yeah. So there was a student question in the chat. Can you describe some student research being done outside of senior theses?
Yeah, so right now, as I mentioned, there's our sign language project that we're working on together, but also there's the Read language, what's it called? There's a linguistic diversity project that is also student run here, that is looking at how language, like what our linguistic makeup is here at Read. So that kind of has a few different forms. One is, what is our linguistic diversity here? Like, what do people speak on campus? As well as, do people believe that there are certain ideologies, we might say, about language here at Reed? Like, is there a way that Reed students talk that freshmen really quickly pick up on and realize, like, oh, if I want to talk like a Reed student, this is what I'm going to shift to do. And some of the things that the students have found out is that Reedies do have a way of speaking. Some of it has to do with just like using really big words, but that comes kind of fast just from taking Hume classes, and you realize like, okay, so people really like using these terms. It's not interesting, it's compelling, or whatever it is. And then other things have to do with kind of regional stuff, that Californian accents, Pacific Northwest accents are really highly represented. And how does that kind of exactly get reflected in how people think Reedies talk? That comes up a lot. I'm a Californian, and I'm proudly, going to use my Californian accent, but a lot of students here feel like, oh, they shouldn't sound like the way that they do, and that maybe there is this Reed way, and that they feel like some level of discrimination. So these students have been trying to, debunk some claims about standard language ideology or majority language ideology, and talk about the actual diversity that we have on campus.
So you mentioned the linquiry earlier, this question, this problem that goes out to everyone in the linguistics department. Are you allowed to give an example of that?
Yeah, I guess like so. One of our early ones was just like we asked, what's the language with the most genders? It's kind of open-ended. There's actually no correct answer, because how could you possibly know every language? But I wanted to just know like what would be the best answer. So if somebody could show me that the language has a really large number of genders, then they would win. And so the one that won, I believe it was, the language was Fulfulde, spoken in West Africa. And it is claimed to have, I think, like 20 or so genders, or even more possibly. So in addition to the ones that people are often familiar with from European languages, like masculine, feminine, maybe neuter, there might be like all kinds of genders for inanimate objects too, that fall under the same kind of patterns that gender does in, say, a language like Spanish or French, where the adjectives might have to agree, and the certain articles will be different for the different kinds of genders. So on top of the ones that you might be familiar with, there could be all kinds more. Another such question that we gave was, do you know, since all of our linguistics professors are pierced in our ears, we just asked, which professor do you think got their piercings first? And can you tell us using Linear B, which is a writing system from ancient Mycenae, and if you could look up that old writing system and write out in some way who you thought was the first person to get a piercing, then you would win. And it was actually Aiden, my student, who figured it out, that it's Kara who got her piercing first and was able to write out in Linear B. I think it was Kara was the first to get the sword because that was the closest that he could write out in ancient Mycenaean Greek. Kara got pierced first.
I love that. That's such a great example.
Yeah.
I want to return really quick and a reminder to students because it shouldn't just be me asking all these questions. I'm just really fascinated by everything I'm hearing. I want to return to the thesis topics. Everything from creaky voice in Love Island to mondegreens. How are students arriving at these topics? These are, you know, seemingly pretty esoteric, pretty niche topics. How are they arriving at those?
Honestly, it's a lot of preparing from before because it does sound like these are kind of random things. How did people even think about them? But they've been thinking about them for a long time. We actually ask students to base their research topics in things that they have looked at before in a classroom setting, or papers they've read before, so that they're not starting out on a totally new area where they would feel completely kind of like unmoored by any real literature out there. So we want to make sure that people have read papers to see like, okay, research has been done in this area before. How can I add to this area? So the research on Love Island, of course, there has not been a paper on the Love Island TV show before, but audience design has been talked about since like the early 1980s. And what it hasn't been extended to is the idea of, creaky voice and audience design has never been overlapped. But Kara and I have been working on a creaky voice project quite a lot here for many years, looking at how the speaker's gender, getting down to the nitty gritty of like, are you non-binary or trans man? Are you a trans man who's taking testosterone or not taking testosterone? How all that kind of stuff could influence how you use creaky voice. Naomi took it the next step, which is like, how does your audience then also influence how you use creaky voice? So that would be something that's building on existing literature and existing expertise that we already had, and was able to kind of like really substantially add to it. The mondegreens work, Aiden had been reading about mondegreens from a computer science background and wanted to bring that into the linguistics world. And Josue his family is from El Salvador, from this town, and even though he has no background in the Nahuatl language, he just got interested in it from a recent visit to El Salvador and was like, wait a second, there's this other language here. And so he planned to like make this other trip out to do a formal kind of research project on it. So usually students have bring in something from their background, something from a course that they took, and we ask them to write out pretty hefty research proposals over the summer before they start their thesis, so that we can assign them the best advisor for that project. And then we get them to like do a lot of reading for the first whole semester of thesis year. And so really that is where they become kind of experts within that area, and then can add to the literature by doing their research over winter break and then presenting the results of that in their spring semester. So it's a long process, but so we don't expect like freshmen to know what they're going to do for their thesis, but they'll learn it by probably in their junior year, they'll be thinking about it. All right, so we have a question also in the chat. Let's see. So,
Just for the sake of the recording, would you mind reading out the question once
yeah.
you've got
So it's
your head wrapped around it?
You mentioned that one requirement for the linguistics major is proficiency in at least two non-native languages, correct? To what extent and in what ways do students have the opportunity to use knowledge gained from general linguistics courses to the languages in which they're proficient? Or comparing language acquisition in different languages. Oh yeah, this is absolutely a thing that happens. And our language professors talk about it all the time. They're like, oh my God, those linguistics students in our class, they love our language courses and they're always bringing in some linguistic bit of information. They'll be like, actually, that sound in Russian, it's a velar, voiceless velar fricative that you're making. So they're like able to bring in that information. And the linguistics, the language professors actually, they even encourage it because they want that kind of life of the mind, like approach to language, which is like bringing in every area of your background to language learning and not just learning it kind of like by rote. So they love when linguistic students bring in kind of that linguistic knowledge and technical knowledge, as long as they can explain it to people in the class. And in turn, for thesis, a lot of people end up taking information that they've gained from their language work here. We had a student who looked at the intonation of Russian by English speakers here at Reed taking Russian classes and how they shift in their pronunciation over time, kind of like a longitudinal study over the year, how their intonation shifts to speak sounding more native Russian. And interestingly, how that ends up affecting their English too. That then their English starts sounding like has a little Russian accent in it in terms of the intonation. So definitely there's a kind of mutual influence between our language courses and our linguistics courses that way.
Can you tell us a little bit about what classroom dynamics are like within the linguistics department?
Yeah, so our intro level courses, especially the ones that have no prereqs, there are kind of big courses that are mostly non-majors actually. So like I'm teaching phonetics this semester, 24 students out of like, that's our cap here at Reed is 24 students. And I will always reach that max. And I would say 55% or so, at least, are non-majors. And of those, the majority are like math and physics majors, computer science maybe. And they're just taking it because they're like, oh, this is going to be like my group 2 course, like in their kind of like social science. But they get to see that like it has a lot of acoustics, a lot of physics, a lot of math in there. But they're also having to learn how different languages are pronounced and like how to transcribe all of that and actually produce and perceive those differences. So those courses where there's a lot of non-linguist majors are really fun, and we do a lot of like exercises together where we have people come up and like have to pronounce things that are given to them on a little card, and another person is trying to transcribe in real time what they're saying, and they get little points for that. It's kind of like a little game. Or they'll look at spectrograms of speech, you know, if you've seen like visuals of speech, and try to figure out what is actually being said there without hearing it, just to be able to say like, okay, I think that's an S I'm seeing over here. Okay, and that looks like an R. Is that your name, Samir? So they'll kind of like figure it out that way. So those are kind of our big courses. Our small courses, all of our courses that don't have that do have prereqs, they're regularly like 7 students, 10 students, 12 students, even like could be 5 or 6 students. And those are really special and like where we can really get deep into some material. I taught field methods last year. That's a course where a speaker of a language that nobody knows in the class will come in and just spend the whole semester with us. They're paid to do that. So we had a speaker of Kazakh, like from Kazakhstan, sit in our class, and she just pretended to be our field methods consultant, like as though we went into the field in Kazakhstan and had to describe and document the language using only kind of that translation of like, how would you say, starting with like words, like how would you say father, mother, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, things like that, and then getting to really complex things by the end of the semester, like how would you say, because my father went abroad, I would not be able to, things like that. And we're able to get everything from like understanding the phonology through complex syntax, and students kind of focus on their different areas. And for that, like students have to bring in their expertise from other classes that they've taken and try to say like, I've taken a lot of syntax classes, so I want to really push us in that area. once we get to the syntax unit. And another student who's like, I'm really good at phonetics, and so I'm really going to help us figure out a way to transcribe this language accurately. And so for those, it's more like students bringing in their individual expertises and like creating something together. So they can be really different in that way. And some of our classes are more reading heavy, some are more like practice heavy, some are more problem set heavy. So it could be all kinds of things. There's a good question here about the overlap between math and linguistics. Why does it exist? I mean, they just inherently do go together. Actually, our old requirement system here had math and linguistics within the same group requirement. We were called Group D together because it was like a formal logic systems kind of analysis. The idea that we have these symbols, we have a like inherent kind of like rules as to like how they combine and what they refer to, especially when you get to the areas of like semantics and logic, that really overlaps quite well with math. And on my end, it's more like how it overlaps on the physics side. I'm looking at resonance and formants and harmonics and frequencies and trying to figure out like, okay, if you know what shape you're making with your tongue or with your lips over here, can you mathematically figure out what the sound will actually look like and be measured like physically? So we have a few different areas in which math kind of overlaps, as well as, of course, like the computer science area as well. And then all of us end up having to do some work in statistics, so there's a little bit of that as well.
So we are 54 minutes in, and so I will, open the floor for some final questions. Students, please pop those in the chat. And as y'all think of those questions, one question that I will ask for you, Samir, what's one piece of advice you would give to prospective readies?
Ooh, if you want to be a readie, I mean, first of all, welcome. We would love to have you here. We love people who just want to learn for learning's sake. We just want people to like enjoy something because it's a nice challenge for the mind. Linguistics is great for that because we have different ways in which we try to expand your mind and get you thinking about something that comes so naturally to you, language, and really get you thinking about it in a like kind of unpacking all of what you thought socially, structurally, and everything. In terms of wanting to be a linguistics major, I would say don't even bother taking linguistics classes here in your first year. Explore everything else. We make sure that your linguistics classes, you can start taking them in your second year and you will not miss out on anything. Like you will be able to get it all. But we want you to be like already a kind of well-rounded, broad student from the beginning. So take your art classes, take your science classes, take your anthropology classes first. Whatever that might be, know that linguistics will be there for you when you start your second year. That's our usual expectation. Also because our courses will fill up in the first year. So we just don't want you to be disappointed that you probably won't get into the linguistics class right upon entry, but know that you will for your second year.
Awesome. On that note, there actually is one last question.
Oh, yeah.
Does the linguistics department have courses focused on language acquisition? Would that be with a professor focused on sociolinguistics?
Oh, I totally forgot to mention, we also have people who work on language from a psychology perspective in the psychology department. So we have Kevin Holmes, who works on kind of language and thought, and he's our closest overlap with kind of the idea of psycholinguistics, which includes linguistic acquisition. Linguistic acquisition kind of shows up as a common theme in a number of our classes, but we don't have like a single class that's like dedicated to acquisition. But it shows up, for example, in my phonology class. We talk about how to analyze the changes that people will go through when they, as their pronunciation changes over their lifetime. But yeah, it's a course that we don't have as a standalone thing, but it'll show up a lot in our other courses.
Wonderful. On that note, I actually will go ahead and close us out here. Samir, thank you so much. This
Yeah.
has been really fantastic. I've really appreciated getting to know a little bit more about our linguistics department, and I'm sure that all of our prospective students have as well. A couple of announcements for all of our students in the audience. We have a lot of other faculty office hours coming up. So if you're interested in learning about other departments as well, maybe you're interested in hearing about how those different disciplines intersect with linguistics, definitely stop by those sessions. And then for all of our admitted students, definitely be on the lookout for different admitted student receptions in your areas. And we would also love to see you on campus for any of the Read Admit days that we have coming up. We've got a whole bunch of them coming up in the next month, and we would love to see you all on campus.
Come sit in on my phonetics class. You can come in on Mondays. It'll be great.
Yeah, come to a Monday Read and Midday. You can sit in one of Samir's phonetics classes. Um, Thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to be here with us, and we hope to see you on campus very soon.
Thanks, Julian, and thanks all for joining. Good to talk to you.